With week 10 in the books and most teams eyeing the college football playoff committee's first bracket, several teams find themselves on the outside looking in, and several teams find themselves inside hoping to continue a season of winning so that they can find themselves on the inside and not on the outside looking out. Several teams were there and now find themselves on the outside as of this weekend. These stories and more on this edition of Gridiron Gab Triple Option. Welcome back, Gabbers. Thank you all for joining us here on another edition of Gridiron Gab Triple Option. Of course, you're gabbing with me, Mr. CeeLo, as always. And I hope you guys are doing great. I know I'm a little late on the reaction, but guys, I have just been blown away by one of my channels, and I've been trying to keep things in perspective while satisfying that need, because hey, look, you get hot one spot, you keep going. But hope you guys are doing well. I got people like Brad that are looking forward to my responses. I don't think he's gonna like what I got to say about Georgia on this show, but needless to say, it's one of those where, hey, you know, you gonna tell the truth, tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you in the Almighty. As I said, I hope you guys are doing great. Like I said, many of you saw my show come out after the AP voters and whatnot, and I did a short last night on the college football playoff committee's decisions. I was pretty much happy about those. I will include that today because I'm probably not going to have time to do that. Well, you never know. I may do a show on that, but gotta go down and talk to my buddy Brad because none of you guys will talk to me. And it's like very disheartening to not see you guys, comment. And like I said, if you guys are Notre Dame fans and you're tuning in, please go over to my show, Talk Like a Champion, whom I give a lot of props to my buddy Brad. He's been my ace since day one. And eventually when we get this platform where we want it to be, we'll be having that roundtable discussion, and many of you guys will be able to be on the show and a part of the show, and that's ultimately what my goal is. Let's look at Brad as he says, "I'm with you, brother. I hate cold weather." Absolutely, bro. I can't stand it. Mr. Dickinson was on the sidelines this past weekend, so I guess that had something to do with the outcome. Well, I agree with you on some of these voters shouldn't be voting because they don't know what they're talking about. Hey, maybe one day they'll be wise and the show hits the platform where it needs to be and we can be voters, right? I agree with you on Texas because got a great defense but ran out of gas against Vanderbilt. That's why Vanderbilt came back. Somewhat. Most of the time that it comes down to someone playing against the SEC in a championship game, what happens, they get embarrassed against the SEC. Well, you already know how I feel about that SEC bias stuff. You already know. One day you will listen to Daddy. About what? You're going to have to start putting the timestamps down here, Brad. You're going to have to start putting timestamps so I know what you're talking about. I don't want anyone to get hurt. Yeah, definitely. I don't know about fake Patrick Mahomes. He's in a class by himself, so I wouldn't say fake. SEC is a better conference. That's why. Bruh. They have more than that. Really? We count BCS where they only pick 2 teams? I think the college football playoff has shown exactly where the SEC is. And the NIL has certainly shown all that under the table paying y'all was doing. Now everybody's doing it, and that's done evened it up, ain't it? You know it. I'm not going to heart that comment. I'm not. The only thing about Texas A&M is a good football team, but the quarterback's arms suck. Come on, B. You know that's not true. That boy can air that thing out. And that is what it scares everybody about A&M. Because, look, last year when he was tearing it up, I can't believe I'm saying this right now. I'm starting to critique before I even start the show. Bro, you know that's how they did it at A&M. He was killing it, throwing it down the field, and then he take off running. See, this year he's having to methodically move down the field. Look, I can't agree with you on that one, brother. Yeah, he's balling. That kid's got a strong arm. I love his arm. Indy still rocks, even though they beat us once. Like the old saying goes, huh? How you going to be stealing my saying? Yeah, the sun was shining on y'all's ass for the last 3 shows until finally the real story came out. So you ain't never beat Notre Dame like that. Never beat Notre Dame like that. And you know it.
Cut it out.
Right on, Pony Express. Absolutely. Until someone beats Ohio State, they should be number 1. Now, see, I disagree with that because they've done that several seasons where a team was number 1. Matter of fact, they done it to Alabama. Well, no, it was Georgia, I think it was. And, yeah, Clemson a couple times. So, no, I don't completely agree with it. I think there's a lot of favoritism within the ranks a little bit because Ohio State hadn't really shown me anything. Everybody's talking about what they've done as far as dominating other teams. Outside of Indiana and Ohio State, maybe you could throw Oregon in there, but I don't see anybody in the Big Ten that is really up to par with what Indiana and Ohio State's got going on. Ducky need to be dropped out of the rankings. They suck. Who have they played? I can't disagree with that. I really think that's a good point. I've said the same thing, just like I've said with Ohio State. Everybody's talking about Texas, but that game was in their building. It was the first game of the year, so whatever. What the F you need a drug test or you smelling them chemicals from work? What are you talking about? I don't get it. Timestamps, bro. One day MD will win the Natty. We know. We know, bro. But Archie still I can't say that, bro. Look, we got to stop giving Arch a hard time because needless to say, this boy's woke up. I think ultimately this has got an opportunity for Texas to make it back in. Now, do I think they're going to beat somebody like us? Absolutely not. They're not. They're going to give somebody a piece of their mind. They might run through the SEC other than everybody except Texas A&M, which they're not going to beat them. I don't think they win this game, and I think ultimately they better beat Georgia. That's all I'm going to say. They better beat Georgia if they want chances to get in, but I think if they lose to A&M, they're not going to get in. But let us get into the week that was, including a team that I was absolutely floored that they finally got their first loss because I like the underdog and I love the little brother. I love Georgia Tech in the fact that they just have a soft spot because everybody just rips and gives them the business. And yeah, it sucked watching them go down Saturday. I was watching it with my son and it just hurt my feelings. It really did. I did not like watching them fall. But looking at the way Saturday went down, let us take a look and let's go into the week that was. Let us get into the Friday night game, which, listen, it ain't October anymore, so you don't have to worry about the crazy Friday night games. Like I was telling somebody the other day, in October, the October crazies, the Friday night crazies, yeah. But it was Memphis 38, Rice 14, as Memphis pretty much had this game in the bag, I would say, in the first half. It ended up being, 31 to 7 at the half. Led by Lewis's 87 yards on the ground and 225 in the air. This is a team that is going to be sneaky good. They're 8-1 overall. They're 8-1 overall and 25th in the AP polls. But then what was interesting last night, and I forgot to pull this up, you guys, because while I do have a reel, I don't have the actual college football playoff rankings up, and Memphis is not ranked yet in the college football playoff, you guys. So this is important to know that the rankings going forward will be based on the college football playoff ranking system. But as I said, Memphis is 8-1 and in the driver's seat for that spot. Well, not completely, so to speak. But then we go and we see Ohio State take out Penn State 38-14, in which this was a game that was 17-14 at the half, and then all of a sudden you saw Ohio State just go into it with Julian Sand throw for 316 and 4 scores. Jackson had 105 yards on the ground, and Tate had 124 yards receiving and a score. But what was an indictment of where Penn State is right now, OSU hasn't been a great rushing football team this year, and Jackson on 13 carries had 105 yards, which is over almost 7 yards a carry. So, yeah, this to me, I'm not sold that Ohio State's finally got their running game woes together. I'm not sold on that. I just think ultimately that Penn State has really sold out, and they're really not taking this season as seriously as they should. But they stay unbeaten at 8-0 and 5-0 in Big Ten play, with really the remainder of their schedule really not looking overly impressive. They really have not been challenged in 2025. To no fault of their own, they win the games on their schedule, but who's to say that doesn't come back and bite them later on. Indiana 55, Maryland 10, as Indiana continues to buzzsaw their way through competition. I think it's the first time they're 9-0 in forever. And looking at this team, you see Black for Indiana, 14 carries, 110 yards, and a touchdown, as this Indiana football team just continues to roll and buzzsaw opponents. And this is probably the way it's going to be going all the way up until they face off against Ohio State in the Big Ten Championship. Just for a footnote, it wouldn't surprise me if Ohio State dropped that Michigan game. Now, a lot of people are going to say, why would they do that when they could get an automatic bid into the playoff? Well, I don't think they want to get beat by Indiana, because ultimately what happens is, whatever happens in that game, ultimately you would think that Indiana is going to have to face you yet again in the college football playoff, and it would make more sense for you to lose that game there and to not expose yourself to anything in a bigger prize than the national championship. Now, I know a lot of people are going to say, I don't believe that, blah, 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 blah. Well, if you could believe it, there were Georgia fans that believed Georgia let Alabama beat them in the SEC title game so they could turn around and win the Natty. That's just what I heard. But we all know what the truth was. It was one of the Alabama receivers got hurt in the Natty. That's what it was. Sorry, Brad, had to expose you. Then we've got number 7 South Carolina moving to 8-1, 5-1 in SEC play after a drubbing of this South Carolina Gamecock team that is just absolutely, I'm not going to say it. Lacey had 167 yards on the ground and a score. Lenore Sellers once again was a no-show. And once again, you look at this Ole Miss team, and I'm not going to say they're overpowering. You don't beat a 3-6 South Carolina team by 16 in your building. I'm going to say it like this. Do I really think Ole Miss is a contender? You can win a handful of games against maybe superior competition, but then when you're struggling against the inferior competition on a week-in, week-out basis, no, it's not. The SEC's much better, Brad, because they're not. We proved that against Arkansas. Just saying, bro. Number 12, Notre Dame goes to 6-2, winning their 6th straight game after a 25-10 victory over Boston College. Now, many people are making note that Notre Dame escaped. It did look like, if you listen to the commentators on the ACC network or the Boston College radio, they made it sound like, oh my goodness, Notre Dame was down 10 points going into the fourth quarter. They did get down in this game, but afterwards the defense put the buckles on, and that was all she wrote. C.J. Carr had 299 yards and 2 scores. Jeremiah Love had 136 and 2 scores. Bond for Boston College had 92 yards receiving, but I will say this, that 94 of Jeremiah Love's 136 came on one play. He had a 94-yarder that he took to the house after an interception by Adon Schuler. So, yeah, and this was a game where Notre Dame's offense was up and down all day. It was either we were getting big plays or we were getting stopped. And I'm going to be honest, this needs to be the motto of Mike Denbrock, because we keep trying to throw it short. And teams are going to stack the box against the run. And when they're not seeing run, we're trying to throw the football intermediate and middle. It's going to have to be long or nothing. It's going to have to be all or nothing throws, because ultimately when teams have you in the box like that, that's what it's going to be. Now, I'm telling you what I know. Boston College has created a blueprint to stop Notre Dame's offense. The question is, I think, are other teams going to be able to imitate it? Then we've got Texas Tech, a big dark horse in this whole mix, as they go to 8-1 and 5-1 in Big 12 with the big matchup coming up this weekend. And many of you are like me. You are looking forward to it, as I think this is one of the scariest teams in all of college football. Got to give a big hometown gab out to Romello Height. Hometown boy had another sack for the Texas Tech Red Raiders, and that gives him six on the season. So big gab out to you, Romello. Good job. Keep doing what you do over there, buddy. And Texas Tech will be in action yet again. Look forward to seeing him out there up against the BYU Cougars. But once again, Texas Tech is just continuously rolling. They truly understood what it was like they basically understood what the mission was. They knew they were going to have a high-powered offense, get a defensive front that can put pressure all over the football. And believe it or not, this was a 12-7 game. And I actually had this pick as the upset special with Kansas State winning. But then you had a 31-point second half. And that just basically put this game out of reach. But once again, Texas Tech 43, Kansas State 20. Number 15, Virginia 31. Unranked California 21. As everybody keeps waiting on Virginia to stub its toe, I myself am waiting on Virginia to stub its toe. It is a good, fun story considering the tragedy that this university have had to deal with. But, a lot of people are saying they're not going to make the college football playoff. A lot of people are really not taking them seriously, or the ACC for that matter. And that's a shame because there's some good teams in there. Morris had 262 yards. Taylor, once again, over 100 yards, but he had 2 scores. And needless to say, California, you can't ask for any more. They were at home, but they could not, get it done. But as I said, Virginia goes to 8-1, undefeated in ACC play as they take out California. Then we got 16th ranked Louisville 28 over unranked Virginia Tech 16. Now, this score is not indicative of what the game was. Now, granted, Virginia Tech went into the locker room up 16-7 at the half, and then all of a sudden Louisville finally got their head on straight and decided, hey, let's get this game out of the way before we start looking ahead. Miller Moss had only 136 yards passing. Brown for Louisville had over 130 yards rushing, and really it was just enough. That was all it was basically, hey, I only got so many lives in this game. This is how many lives I need you. They used the bare minimum of lives to get through this stage. And ultimately, Louisville's a player. I don't care what the College Football Playoff Committee says. This is a unit that people better be wary of. Louisville's not going to play around. Even the College Football Playoff Committee moving them up one spot. This is not a team you want to play if you're dealing with Louisville. Louisville is going to be a very, very tough out for anybody. And you've got California, Clemson, SMU, and Kentucky have them left over. Now, granted, none of these teams are ranked, but I'm going to be honest with you, don't be surprised. Louisville's going to be trying to run up style points en route to possibly getting into that ACC title game. So, just be wary if you're playing Louisville. Then we've got Michigan struggling to put away Purdue, winning 21-16. This has been one that I didn't understand why people said they escaped. And this is in their building. And they escaped this game 21-16 behind Marshall's 185-yard, 3-touchdown performance. He scored all of Michigan's points. Well, not counting the extra points. But Michigan got to get it together. They better get it together. And this is why I did not understand how the committee did not view them as to me, they're down here with Pittsburgh. Purdue in your building? Come on now. Brad, I know you agree with me on that one. West Virginia upsets Houston 45-35 to pick up their first win in the Big 12, as Houston was a conference championship game hopeful. Not anymore. Wigman threw for 309 and 4 scores. Hubbard for West Virginia had 108 yards on the ground, but unfortunately, you got to be able to slow down a team that's 3-6, and unfortunately, Houston was unable to get out of their own way. Now, not only are the college football playoff hopes really in the toilet, but their Big 12 hopes are in the toilet as well. And then one of the most exciting non-ranked by rank matchups, but USC being ranked, but Nebraska not being. Nebraska was previously 6-2, which is kind of baffling why they weren't ranked. But USC was able to pull out the win 21-17 over the home team Nebraska, whom not only lost this game, but they lost their star quarterback Dylan Raiola to injury. And it's looking like he could be done the remainder of the season. And down goes Nebraska as well. Jaden Maiava had absolutely one of the worst games, I would say, of his career. He was only 9 of 23 for 135 yards and had an interception. Whereas Nebraska's Johnson had 165 yards on the ground and a score. When you rush for that many yards, if you would have showed me this and not showed me the score, I would have thought straight up this was the game that Nebraska had won. But unfortunately, you have to be able to, you just got to be able to turn something outside of turnovers into points. I mean, when you look at, USC outrushing Nebraska, and then you look at the time of possession that, Nebraska was able to win by almost 5 minutes, turnovers are even, but then you're in your building and you're getting outgained. And a lot of that happened after Dylan Raiola went out of this game. I mean, you could argue the game was 17-6 until, 14-6 until Raiola's injury. And then all of a sudden, USC jumps back in this thing, and that was all she wrote. So I don't disagree with that, but you have to have an alternative to when your best player is hurt or out of the game. So, and unfortunately, they weren't able to do that, and unfortunately, he goes down as well as in my opinion, their season does. USC 21, Cornhuskers 17. But now let us get into the big time matchups critiques that Mr. CeeLo was talking about. Number 18, Oklahoma pulls the upset in Knoxville. Not an upset to me, but according to the numbers, over 14th ranked Tennessee, 33-27. Now, before there's too many people that start getting excited, I'm just going to go ahead and tell you, and I'm going to tell you this too, Brad. When people sit here and say the SEC is this and that, I'm not sold on the SEC. Let's just get that out of the way right now. Because you got 3 teams in there that are overrated, and they trying their damnedest to get Texas overrated. But, of course, Georgia and Texas A&M are going to change that narrative. Well, I had to say this. It all depends on how much Sankey gives Bobo and Kirby. But look in here. You look at how this game, Tennessee dominated this game. But the turnovers will kill you every time. Not to mention when you have a turnover for another big game cost you points. To me, when you give up a defensive touchdown, that's the equivalent of 2 touchdowns. Because needless to say, if it's a defensive touchdown, guess what? Not only did you turn the ball over in the process, because you're going this way, but you turn around and you give up points on your side. And nothing makes the defense more off than when they're getting points added to their record And they wasn't even on the field. I know it. I know it. But you look at the time of possessions, you looking at the yardage. Tennessee dominated this game yardage-wise. And I've said many a times, John Mateer in this offense does not impress me. But here's the other thing. Tennessee has not shown me they can do anything outside of a weak defense. They have not. Now, granted, Oklahoma's got a good defense, but here's the thing. They had one more turnover than Oklahoma. So that means they need to have at least 100 yards more than what Oklahoma's spitting out. And they did. Here's the problem. You have to be able to push the ball down the field consistently. But then look at the rushing attack. Tennessee only had 63 yards on the ground on 35 attempts. There's your problem. But then you look on the flip side. Oklahoma had 192 yards on 35. What's surprising is how efficiently Tennessee threw the football. And yeah, you're thinking, okay, if you got 80 plays off compared to Oklahoma's 64, you're running 20 more plays than this team. You would have thought, and you're in your building, you would have wore them out. And what really got me was that and Tennessee was never able to double that up. If you look at it, both teams scored 17 points in the second half. The score ended up the same way it was at the end of the half. And I'm going to be honest, this needs to be the end of the Tennessee Volunteer talk. Even if they beat Vanderbilt. Yeah, you heard me, right? Even if they beat Vanderbilt, we're tired of hearing that. Great season, but reality of it is you ain't beat really nobody. And I'm just going to be honest with you. Looking at this bracket, I am just drooling. Oh boy, I'm telling you. Ooh, I'm just drooling. Please let it start tomorrow. I know it won't. But Oklahoma is still mathematically alive. Given that there could be some chaos at the top, I'm not sold on, what the Sooners have to do. And, listening to Brent Venables say that he matched Tennessee's intensity, I don't know what that is. This ain't no intensity. I'm sorry, Venables. I mean, yeah, y'all won the game, but the physicality, stop it, bro. Tennessee ain't that damn physical. I mean, I just, I don't agree with that. But anyway, it's good to get the win. Brent Venables is, got to be thrilled to get this win, but unfortunately, it doesn't get any easier. Texas 34 and Vanderbilt 31. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this game was not nearly as close as the experts want to say it. I'm just going to be 100%. Let me make sure I'm 100% clear here. Now, I get it. They made a valiant attempt to come back in this game, but unfortunately, I looked at it and I said, okay, you guys had 3 quarters. We all know what Texas was going to do once they got in right there at the end of the third. We knew what this was about. Why is anybody sitting here even trying to give an ounce of validity to this comeback that occurred? I'm not giving us an ounce of validity to it, because the truth of the matter is you didn't do it in 3 quarters. I'm sorry. A lot of people say, well, good comebacks happen. Well, what about Notre Dame? Notre Dame did the same thing. Well, the difference was Notre Dame wasn't sitting here. Ohio State wasn't sitting here doing okay, we got to make it through the next game. We got to hold something back because this game's over. No, that's it. Your job is to make sure that we don't get back up. But no, the big story is Arch Manning's health, and that he was basically not on the SEC injury report early Saturday. I think it was late Friday, early Saturday morning. And what really impressed me about what the Texas Longhorns were able to do is they played this game like their lives were on the line. Like they knew the college football playoff committee was looking at this game. There were so many people that had said they were going to be there. Even Coach Sark acknowledged the fact this had a playoff environment. He basically said it was a great win, but like I said, coming out of that Mississippi State game, you really didn't feel good about the Texas Longhorns' chances. Now, y'all didn't. I did. I felt like this was a game that Vanderbilt had not played intensely enough. I don't think they've had a game this intense this year. I thought the fans at Tuscaloosa were intense, but it was intense when he got inside the red zone, which is why he threw the 2 interceptions that he threw. But against Vanderbilt, you look at how Manning went 25 of 33 and really looked like the same guy that finished that game last week. But the other thing is that you kind of got to see that Texas was getting out of its stump running the football, as Wisner was able to run that thing 18 times for 75 yards and a touchdown. And if they can start running the ball and basically taking other teams' what they see away and doing what they do, it's going to be tough. It's going to be a tough team to beat. But in all respects to Diego Pavia, he finished with a career high 365 yards and 408 yards. Do you guys remember what I said on the show? I said I didn't see them winning because Pavia is not going to throw for 300 yards. But he did. He surely did. He threw for 300 yards. Surprised the heck out of me. Now, is he better than Haynes King? No. Because I'm going to tell you what Haynes King did this week. He was absolutely brilliant. I told you he was putting up yards like a cash register in a video game. Pavia had 365, 43 yards on the ground in a score, but he threw for 3 touchdowns. So he had right at 408 yards total offense. Arch Manning, as I said, once again did his thing. 328, 3 scores. As I said, this game didn't, basically get me as much as it got others saying, oh yeah, Vanderbilt made a valiant effort come back. They were an onside kick from, taking the win. No. Texas was trying to get out of the game. They were basically up, 31 to 10? Stop it. Stop. Don't do that. But looking at this, I don't think Vanderbilt was ever a contender. When you're beaten by 3 and basically you're doctored it up, I'm not sold on the fact that if Texas would have kept their foot on the gas, knowing they have Georgia and they have Texas A&M left on the schedule, they realized they had to get out of this game. And I'm not saying they pulled all their players, but I will tell you this: they weren't going as intense as they needed to do. I didn't think so. But anyway, Texas, the Longhorns move up, and you look at the College Football Playoff Committee, they got them moving all the way up to number 11. And here's the problem I have. Vanderbilt only moved down a handful of spots. They're down at 16 with an opportunity to jump right back in this thing. But that's okay. As I said, I'm looking at the idea that this is the football team that in Texas that could very well sneak into the college football playoff, make some serious noise if Arch Manning is that dude. Let us move on to the heartbreak of the week, if you will. And that would be Georgia Tech 36, North Carolina State 48. As CJ Bailey showed us why Notre Dame deserves more respect than they get. Because Notre Dame hammered NC State. Okay? And this is not just because I'm playing favorite. A lot of people are going to say I'm playing favorite. I'm just stating a fact. Because North Carolina State, look at what they were able to do here and look what they weren't able to do at Notre Dame. They only scored 7 points. Now, granted, everybody's going to say, but that was in your building. Fair. But let's look at what they've done to teams like Eastern Carolina. They scored 24. Let's see what they've done versus Virginia, whom they have their only loss to. They scored 35. Okay? They scored 23 versus Virginia Tech, 56 versus Campbell, and then now they've scored 48 with Miami, Florida State, and North Carolina on the horizon. Now, in my opinion, Miami could make a splash with this team. I honestly think people are underestimating what this team does. Granted, Duke's not a pushover. Virginia Tech, questionable. Pitt, not a pushover either. But looking at this game, I almost feel absolutely horrible for Haynes King, because ultimately this already puts him out of the Heisman. Now, because here's the thing. Name me a quarterback that's done this. 408 yards, 2 touchdowns, 20 carries, 103 yards, 2 touchdowns. That is 511 yards of total offense by himself. Maybe that's who you were referring to, Brad. Wasn't that who you were referring to when you said Patrick Mahomes Jr.? Okay, you're right. But I will say this. In fairness to Haynes King, I like him better as a runner than I do Patrick Mahomes. And I'm going to be honest with you. Nobody's talking about this guy. But guess what, Brad? Me and you, right here. Me and you. And anybody else that's watching. I want Haynes King in the Heisman watch. And I'm going to tell you something right now. Haynes King's arm, you could get it right where Mahomes is. I can tell you right now, just like Brad just said, Mahomes Jr., if that's what you mean, Brad. Somebody need to jump on this kid. Just saying. Love Haynes King. But, the problem I saw with this game is a lot of times I've seen with Georgia Tech's offense. They did a lot of things right. But there were times Haynes got to figure out when he needs to hand this ball off, when he needs to give it up. What would have been, brilliant is if they did run a little bit more of that wing and split in action. But ultimately, when they had their most successes, when they kept having that tight end drag and drag out of the backfield on their pass plays. Eventually, NC State got to the point where they were so desperate to stop it. They were blitzing almost every play. So, and I tipped my hat to them. I was telling my wife at the time that, look, they're not gonna catch up. And, because she kept saying that's how she thought. They got a chance to catch up. No. Georgia Tech's defense didn't stop NC State. And I'm going to be honest with you. It's not that they're trash. It's just that NC State finally had it together. C.J. Bailey had the game of the year for himself, a personal game of the year. And then they couldn't stop Jaden Scott. And just when you got a guy who's running for 196 and a touchdown, and then you've got a quarterback that is just ripping you to shreds. And the scary part is this was out their best player, Hollywood Smothers. NC State, good football team. If they just had an ounce of defense, they'd have been great. I hate this for Georgia Tech because, needless to say, Georgia Tech has not had a pushover of a schedule. Just a lot of people don't respect the schedule. They just don't respect what Georgia Tech does. And the reality of it is Tech could not afford to lose a game like this. And NC State, unfortunately, gave them the door slam that they were not looking for. Fortunately for them, they do hold their destiny in their own hands as far as the ACC championship game. If they can win out and take out Pittsburgh, that will go a long way. But unfortunately for Georgia Tech, Notre Dame gets Pitt first. So, yeah, it's going to be a situation where Notre Dame's going to be able to benefit from playing. Notre Dame's going to benefit from playing Pitt first and getting that opportunity to stop Pitt, whom is going to be a ranked football team according to the college football playoff. And that's good for us. Hopefully Pitt can not make some adjustments while they await in the wings for us because they are off this week. But big loss for Georgia Tech as Haynes King continues to be just Mr. Everything for this football team. I love watching this guy. He is so much fun to watch, and I hate that the Heisman voters are not looking at him, and the media is not pushing him. So me and Brad, we're going to do that for you. Haynes King for Heisman. This is the guy whom, like I said, I'm going to take a little monologue here and really go and brag about Haynes King because, this is a kid that is just absolutely phenomenal and fun to watch. I mean, you can't think of another player that's more fun to watch than him. A guy who's got... Now, a lot of people are going to say the numbers don't go out at you. Well, Travis Hunters didn't go out at me. But they gave him the champion. They gave him the Heisman anyway, he's thrown for 1888, thrown 9 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. But then what really strikes you also is his 754 yards on the ground and 14 touchdowns. Now, you could argue this guy's going to throw for 2,000, 2,000 and run for 1,000. Now, I know a lot of you are going to say it would be more impressive if King had thrown for 3,000 and ran for 1,000. So I'm looking at it from the standpoint he's thrown for 1,800, and then on top of that, this is a dude who was on a team that was undefeated till last week, and then he did everything in his power to win this game. 400 yards and 100 yards rushing. I'm going to get that stat up and find out who was the last player to do that. I remember he threw for 300 and ran for 100 against Georgia. So while everybody tossed that noise, I'm going to be honest with you. The kryptonite for Georgia's defense has always been Haynes King and his scrambling ability and his running ability. And in that game they played last year, he did 300 plus and 100 plus. I'm just saying. And this game's going to be in Atlanta, even though it's not going to be on a neutral site. I mean, even though it's going to be on a neutral site. Brad, Lil Mahomes might put that thing on y'all. And then the game of the night with, once again, these horrible SEC officials. I'm going to go on the record. I'm going to say it just like this. That was a catch. And I just find it funny that the SEC reviewers didn't show the front shot. I just think it's funny. All this technology and you didn't have a shot of his hands right there. Uh-huh. Georgia 24, Gators 20. I feel you, Gators. We've been the victim of some bad officiating too. Like I said, I've looked at this thing inside and out. People have sat there and tried to say that ball hit the ground. It's funny to me, they didn't have a front shot. All they had was that back shot and that side shot. Neither one of them showed where his hands were not together. If his hands were not together, I can agree with you. If the hands are out like this, but if the hands are here, I get it. But they didn't show us the front view, just like Kirby taking that, clapping his hands looking like a timeout. I'm not going to trust any Georgia fan until they openly tell me, oh, that was him calling timeout. Stop it. But ultimately, when you look at this game, they keep calling it Georgia rallied. Stop it. No damn rally. Stop it. I mean, seriously, is that what we're calling that? But ultimately, DJ Lagway, once again, he did take ownership for that ball hopping there. I mean, I'm going to be honest with you. I was like, I'm glad he took ownership for it. But, bro, you got to be better. You cannot be that dude and you hopping balls to guys. I mean, you did a great job finding the receiver, and how that receiver got behind him, I have not been able to find a shot as to how. It looked like the safety, there was a beautiful play design called where it looked like one of the guys was going in on a crosser, and a deep crosser, and guess what? He totally forgot about the receiver, and he just kept running his route, and boom. Yeah. I mean, ultimately, that's where you look at this team and you say, you got to execute. And once again, we look at Georgia and we say to ourselves, now granted, they did run the football for 138, but here's the reality. Bowens had 70 of those 138. So you take away Bowens' 9 carries. 36 coming on one play. So again, you take and you go 34, 8 carries, 34 yards. So that's right at 4, but that one play is what garnered majority of the big play. So in essence, when you look at this Georgia running game, if you can maintain 1 or 2 guys, because Nick Frazier, like I said before, doesn't scare me. This offensive line does not scare me if you're a opponent of Georgia. This defense does not scare me because Florida has not been very successful offensively this year. And I get it. They're under an interim coach. I totally get that. A lot of people are going to sit there and say, well, we got better. Well, yeah, and this was a rivalry game. I get it. Look at it. 23 points against Mississippi State, 17 A&M, 21 Texas, 7 against Miami, 10 against LSU, 16 against South Florida, 55 against Long Island. But see, the problem is Lagway. The question is he going to stay put, and is he going to be a guy that returns? For Georgia, the problem is you can't run the football as effectively. Now people are going to say 39 carries at 136 yards is 38 yards is impressive. No, it's not. I'm sorry, 39 carries. That's not. You're supposed to be averaging 4 and 5 yards a pop. And the reality of it is, you have not been able to dominate football games. We keep talking about Gunnar Stockton like, yeah, he's that dude. And I keep hearing like, oh yeah, he's a warrior. He's a this, he's a that. He's an average quarterback. That's the problem in the SEC. You keep propping up average players. Now, he's not a scrub, but come on, this dude's first year as a starter. You cannot put the whole program on the back of a pretty much a redshirt freshman, if you will. Then you've got no running game to speak of, as I said before, and that's not like Georgia. This is going to be huge when they get in the college football playoff, as I've told Brad and many of you Georgia fans. This is going to be massive. If you don't get that line where it needs to be, it's going to end up being your downfall. But as I said before, I sent out a reel last night on the college football playoff and the committee making its decision and its bracket and whatnot. I'll put it up at the end of the night in the background, you guys. But ultimately, it's there, and many teams are satisfied. Yeah, there we go. We are looking at it right now. And guys, like I said, I am a happy fan because you guys know what I sport. The dark blue and the gold. And look at that. Look how beautiful that is. And guess what? We won't face any of the perennial superstar teams until we get to the Natty. But we'll get a rematch from last year and a rematch from week 3. But that's going to do it for this edition of Gridiron Gab Triple Option. Make sure you leave your name down in the comments if you are a first-time subscriber or a first-time watcher. Make sure you hit like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell on your way out. Also, make sure you go over to the Facebook and hit us up at Gridiron Gab Triple Options, the group, as well as the page. Make sure you add us as a friend and join the group. Finally, make sure you go over to my Instagram if you want to get more intimate and find out what other things I am caught up in during the football and out of the football season at Mr. CeeLo on Instagram. But until the next time, same Gab channel, same Gab platform.